Our guest today is the director of the Illinois Department of Transportation. He was appointed by Governor Pat Quinn nearly 2 years ago. At the age of 26, our guest today was elected as the youngest member of the Illinois House at that time. Our guest today was born in Litchfield, Illinois. He is a 1974 graduate of the University of Illinois in Champaign. He is a certified public accountant. Ladies and gentlemen, the Secretary of Transportation for the state of Illinois, Gary Hannig. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, and it's a great pleasure to be here today with so many distinguished gentlemen and ladies to have an opportunity to talk about the state of transportation here in Illinois. And I can tell you we've got a lot going in the state of Illinois in the area of transportation. You've probably been driving around from time to time and seen the many detour signs or slow down signs or construction signs. Indeed, we have the biggest road program in the history of the state of Illinois this year. We have $5 billion under contract right now. Now, not all that money will spend out this year. Some of that, like the Lower Wacker Drive project, will go on for more than 1 year. There are other projects around the state as well. But it is a good time to be running an agency like the Department of Transportation. And I feel very lucky that when Governor Quinn appointed me about 2 years ago, we were already beginning to do the stimulus program that the federal government had enacted. And that gave us an opportunity to get almost $1 billion of projects out the door last construction season. And that gave us an opportunity to begin putting people back to work and to begin to upgrade the infrastructures here in Illinois. But I dare say that had we stopped with just the money that we got from the federal government, that we would not have gotten very far, and we really wouldn't have appreciated what got done. But what really took place that was a game changer for us at the Department of Transportation, and really for us as citizens of Illinois, was that Governor Quinn was able to sit down with the 4 legislative leaders and leaders in the Illinois House and Illinois Senate on both sides of the aisle and work out a capital program. And about a year ago, he actually was able to get it passed and get it signed, and now we have $31 billion in capital projects that have been enacted by the legislature and are ready to go. 21 billion of those come through the Illinois Department of Transportation. So you can see that we do have an opportunity, an unprecedented opportunity at the Department of Transportation to get some things done. So not only will this be the biggest construction season in the history of the state of Illinois, but I think it's fair to say that for the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to have some big projects coming out the door. We're going to have some opportunities to get a lot of things done, to put some people back to work. And I don't think I can emphasize too much that the leadership of Governor Quinn and the legislature made this all happen. You know, I like to often say that that when we look at these projects and when we announce these projects or cut the ribbons, break ground, whatever, that the project is going to contain a lot of concrete and a lot of asphalt and a lot of people are going to go to work. But if it wasn't for the vision, the leadership, and the courage of a lot of people in Springfield, these projects simply would not happen. Because it's easy enough to go to Springfield and be against everything, but you have to be able to work together on both sides of the aisle, downstaters and upstaters, Senate and House, Republicans and Democrats, to get this done. And for over 10 years, we struggled in the state legislature. And I can tell you I served in the legislature, and we struggled to try to get a capital bill together. But now we have, and because of that, we're moving forward in Illinois. We're moving forward, and we're going to have 2,500 miles of pavement repairs and upgrades across Illinois this year. We're going to have over 220 bridge improvements here in Illinois this year. And we're going to have at least 200 individual safety improvements in various places throughout the state of Illinois as well this year. And as we look forward to the out years, in 2011 through 2016, we've got 4,700 miles of additional pavement improvements scheduled in our multi-year plan for the out years. That's about 30% of the entire state road footprint. We're going to rehab more than 760 bridges. That's about 1 in 10 in the state of Illinois. And so those are the kind of things that we have on the books, not only for this year, but for next year. And as we look forward to what we have going even beyond that in the highway part of our agency, we know that the federal Congress is looking at doing a reauthorization, kind of a capital bill out in Washington. And we're optimistic that when the elections are over in about a week or so, when the Congress gets back together in Washington, D.C., that they can put their heads together and come up with the reauthorization of the transportation bill. And typically, that's the kind of thing that's good for us here in Illinois. So I think when you look at what we have with the stimulus, what we have with the capital bill under Governor Quinn in the legislature, and what we hope to have under the transportation reauthorization in Washington, at least on the highway side, you can see that there's a lot of projects and a lot of job opportunities and a lot of economic development for about as far as the eye can see. And that's good news for all of us here in Illinois. Indeed, I like to also talk about how infrastructure investments have always brought economic development. That's something that's happened throughout the whole history of our republic. Whether it was the early days when the development was on the eastern seaboard, or whether it was later where we saw development along the rivers, where communities like St. Louis or New Orleans developed because of that waterway, or where the railroads came along and made cities like Chicago the great jewel on the Lake Michigan that it is today, are the highways that we see today. Whatever the investment in infrastructure was, it always led to more economic development. And so what we have with the stimulus, with the capital bill, with the rewrite of the Transportation Act, is opportunities at the Department of Transportation, not only to fix our roads and highways, but opportunities to put people back to work, and opportunities for the private sector to find ways to take advantage of this additional infrastructure spending. We've got some other items that we're also very proud of at the Department of Transportation. One of them has to do with safety. Safety is always one of the big concerns that we have at the department, and we're very proud of the fact that last year we had the fewest number of fatalities on Illinois' highways since 1921. 1921, Henry Ford was making Model Ts. The highway system in 1921 was significantly different than it is today. The population of our nation and our state was much less than it is today. So I think it goes to show that when you work together, the Department of Transportation, the Secretary of State, Jesse White, the state police, the U.S. Department of Transportation, when we all work together and put our minds on a focus like safety, we can get the job done and we can lower the rate of fatalities on our highways to something that we haven't seen in our lifetime. And we still believe that any fatalities are too many, and so we'll be continuing to work with our partners to make sure that we have an opportunity to continue to reduce the fatality rate here in the state of Illinois. The governor's also been working with us and the legislature in the Capitol bill to do some things for transit. You probably have seen perhaps some of the announcements that we've made recently. And the capital bill that was passed last year had $3 billion earmarked for transit. $2.7 billion of that goes to the northeastern part of the state of Illinois, and about $300 is earmarked for the downstate regions. So we know that the lion's share of that money will be working its way through the system. We've already seen some progress, and we've seen some results that are good for us here in Illinois. You may have seen recently where the governor was out in Rochelle, Illinois, and a Japanese firm has made a commitment to build a new manufacturing plant in Illinois for the purposes of building train cars for Metra. We also believe that this plant will be able to build train cars for Amtrak and for the high-speed rail. So some of the things that we've been able to accomplish with the capital bill are already starting to pay dividends in terms of jobs for the state of Illinois. We know that the CREATE program, which was part of the capital bill, again, is helping us unravel all the traffic jams that we have here in Chicago with freight rail. And we were just out in DuPage County this morning. The governor was with us, and we talked in terms of a project to do a Bensonville grade separation. In fact, while we were out there, 2 freight trains lumbered along and held up traffic for about 20 minutes. So clearly it was a project that needed to be done. We're working very hard in the area of airports as well. We know that all transportation is important to the state of Illinois. The governor recently put together a group to deal with the western access to O'Hare. We know that we have to deal with the issue of upgrading the areas west of O'Hare and making sure that we can have a transportation network that maximizes the opportunities for the greatest airport in the United States. So we're well on our way to finalizing that. We've got a footprint laid out. We're going to be meeting with the communities involved and looking for a way to find a consensus on how best to pay for it and how best to move forward. But it's important that we all understand that we are moving forward, and because of the capital bill, we've got the money to make sure that the Department of Transportation here in Illinois can do what we need to do. We're also very happy that we have money for high-speed rail. We were one of just a few states that won some big grants from the federal government, and part of the reason we believe we were successful was, number one, is that the Department of Transportation has been working on high-speed rail for a long time, and secondly, because we were able to put up a match for some of the monies on high-speed rail here in Illinois. And I'm happy to say that earlier this fall, Governor Quinn and Joe Zabel, who's the director of the Federal Rail Administration, were down in the Alton area, and we actually began the process of laying new tracks for high-speed rail between Chicago and St. Louis. We got the section between Godfrey, Illinois, which is a downstate community just over the river on the Illinois side, and from there to Lincoln, Illinois, which is a community just north of Springfield. We're actually upgrading those tracks with the long steel rails and the concrete ties so that they'll be capable of sustaining 110-mile-an-hour passenger trains when we get the line finished. Illinois was the first state of all the states that had received any high-speed rail money from Washington. Illinois was the first state to actually go to construction. And we were very proud of the fact that in a relatively short time, we had the process moving forward, we had the money going out the door, and because of our efforts, the railroads are getting better, and we have some people that are going to work. So those are the kind of things that we have working for us at the Illinois Department of Transportation. We do have our challenges as well. Clearly, one of the things that we work with is the fact that our headcounts at the agency are lower than almost ever historically. The headcounts at the agency just a few years ago were about 7,000. They bottomed out in November at about 5,000. We've come off that floor just a little bit, but not very much. And so it's a real challenge to try to run an agency as we have stimulus money and capital money and high-speed rail money and money for aeronautics all coming our way. Good things and good challenges, but the headcounts, the number of people that are there, are the same. The numbers are the same as they were a few years ago when the Department of Transportation, like most of the other agencies, was simply struggling to chug along every day. But today, with the additional responsibilities and the additional money, the additional challenges, we're trying to find a way to increase our headcounts. You wouldn't think it would be that hard with the unemployment that we have today. But I have to tell you that the bureaucracy sometimes is such that we find a need, we say, let's post that job. It's a civil service job. We post it, people apply, and we pick a winner. And lo and behold, the winner that we find, the most qualified person, is somebody who already works at IDOT, somebody who understands the job, somebody who gets a promotion. But at the end of all that effort, somebody moves from desk A to desk B, but we really haven't increased the headcount. We promoted a worthwhile person. Somebody can be helpful to us, but we really haven't solved the problem. So it takes a while to get out to the street. We're finally getting out there where we continue to go through this motion for a period of time, and now we're going to be in a situation where I think we can get some additional headcounts on board in the not-too-distant future. We clearly have the authority. The legislature was willing to work with us, and the governor's office of management and budget was willing to work with us. So we have the budget in place. We just have to be able to work through the process. We also are working very hard to try to do better in diversity at IDOT. Governor Quinn often speaks about diversity and the fact that when you go past a project, whether it's a road project or a rail project, you want the diversity on that project to reflect the diversity that we have here in the state of Illinois. We've been doing some recruiting where we can to try to bring more engineers of color onto the Department of Transportation's payroll. We've had some success. It's been a little bit of a process of inventing the wheel because we had gone a long period of time where we simply didn't hire a lot of people out of college. We just simply allowed the headcounts to gradually go down and down and down. Well, now we're back to a position where we need college graduates. We need to get out there and recruit them, and we want to make sure that when we do that in a way that is diversified and reflects the state of Illinois and the diverse workforce that we have in our state. We're also working to try to bring more DBEs, minority businesses, into the mix as well. And of course, we know that we went through a very difficult recession, and we're still in it, and that's taken its toll, not only on big businesses that are out there trying to compete every day, but many of the DBE businesses that would work for IDOT as well. And so one of the challenges we have is that we've seen that pool of DBEs diminish in the last few years, and now as the work opportunities grow, we've got to begin to grow the pool as well. So we've been working with various groups around the state of Illinois, and particularly here in the Chicagoland area. We've got some opportunities, I think, to help grow some of our DBE businesses and to match them up with prime contractors who are willing to work and help a smaller business grow. And so I think that, while I wish I could tell you we are doing better, I think we have taken some steps in the right direction. We're continuing to take steps in that direction, and we're starting to see some positive results. So it doesn't all happen overnight, but clearly we're moving in the right direction. The legislature also gave us a program called Target Markets, which I think will help, where we'll actually set aside a certain number of dollars, and these will be set aside for the purposes of letting contracts to minority-owned businesses and small businesses. So we have some tools that we have to work with. I think the biggest impediments that we have still are the fact that we do have a recession, and it's tough to get businesses going and keep them going in this kind of environment, and the federal rules that we work with at the Department of Transportation as well. When the governor appointed me to the agency, I didn't realize that so much of what we do at the Illinois Department of Transportation is subject to oversight and perhaps even being overruled by the U.S. Department of Transportation. There is some rhyme and reason to it. We understand the concept that the federal government wants to have a seamless transportation system so that when you cross a state line from Illinois to Indiana, that the stop signs aren't different, or the yield signs aren't different, or the stop lights aren't configured differently. We want to make sure that that all works very seamlessly. But sometimes we find that the rules that are applied nationwide don't always fit so well here in Illinois. And I have to tell you, it's been a little bit of frustration when we've gone out to Washington and we've asked for some waivers and we've asked for some opportunities to try some pilot projects in order to increase our DBE numbers. And for the most part, we've been told no. So it's been a little frustrating in that respect. That's just a part of what we have to live with on a daily basis. But that's still a challenge that we're working very hard at. So really, to summarize where we're at in transportation today, I think this is in my view, IDOT is the best agency that anyone could ask to run. I feel so blessed that Governor Quinn gave me the opportunity. We know the financial situation that the state of Illinois is in. We know that so many of the other agencies around state government are struggling to make ends meet, to make sure that vendors get paid. We at the Department of Transportation, because of the Capitol bill, have records amount of money to work with. We're trying to do our best to live up to the challenges that the legislature and the governor gave us when they passed the capital bill. Indeed, that's why we do have the biggest road program in the history of the state this year. So it seems to me that we're moving in the right direction. It's been a great ride for me for the last 2 years. I certainly look forward to the next 3 or 4 years, and hopefully we can all be here again on an annual basis and talk about all the projects and roads and bridges and aeronautics that we're getting done here in Illinois. So again, I can't thank Governor Quinn enough for appointing me. I can't thank my legislative friends enough for passing a capital bill. And I think we at the Department of Transportation are living up to the expectations that the citizens expect from us, given the tools that we have. So at that, if someone wants to ask a few questions, I'm always open to questions. I used to serve in the legislature. People ask us a lot of questions there, sometimes tougher than others. But
How about a big round of applause?
see any easy ones?
Yeah, we'll start off with the ones that I could read. Joy Saxon, raise your hand, board member. Are the projects you describe paid for with borrowed money? No, there are no softball questions at the city club, Mr. Mayor.
So let's talk about how the legislature did this. They put together a program that gave us the $31 billion in projects. Most of them went to IDOT. Then they put together a process on how you would pay for those projects. So there were some fees that were imposed on driver's licenses and license plates. There were some fees on, I think, on candy bars and liquor. And then there were some fees that were imposed, I think, on some beauty products. And then there was the part of the bill that isn't enacted yet, which is the video gaming. And so there's a revenue stream that comes into the capital projects fund, and then that's the fund that pays the debt service on the bonds so that we can do these projects. So it is true that we're borrowing the money to do these projects, but it's also true that we have a well laid out way to pay for it. So it's not adding to the deficit. It's simply a standalone project, a program that allows us to go forward, and it also finds a way to pay for it.
Okay. You're not, Jim. We have a lot of questions that you just answered. Let's see here. Peter, your question, Peter Scosi, where are you? Peter, raise your hand. There he is, over there in the corner there. From the Metropolitan Planning Council, how much of the $21 billion in capital funds for IDOT are dependent on video gaming? The quick answer is?
Well, right now, what we actually were able to do as well is that we were a bit concerned as to what would be the outcome of the video gaming and when it would get up and running. And as we all know, there are no video machines licenses issued yet in Illinois. So one of the things we did last year at the veto session was we came to the legislature and we said, in a worst case scenario where the capital projects funds didn't have enough money to pay bonds, would you give us the authority that we could double barrel those bonds, that we could back them with the road fund? And they said yes. And so to date, we have not had any problem selling bonds in the state of Illinois, because if you want to buy those bonds for road projects, you know that you have the capital projects fund to make the debt service. And should that come up short, and it has not, but should it, you could always go to the road fund. So the legislature, again, was very helpful in working with us. Governor Quinn gave us the okay to ask. The legislature said okay. We were able to anticipate a problem that hasn't happened, but should it happen, we have a plan.
We have our own video gaming bill for the city club. It's called Chicago Mayoral Politics, and we're going to clean up. All right, from Grant Litsky, I think I finally deciphered it. Quote, board member, how is the public money being used to construct the high-speed rail being protected should the project stop with a change of administration? Something I know you don't see happening. This money is this money, or this money is being invested in UP's line? Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah.
Good.
So yeah, that's correct. Most of the rail between Chicago and St. Louis, not all of it, but much of it, most of it, the majority, is owned by Union Pacific. And so we have an agreement with them. We signed an agreement earlier this year, and $98 million is being spent right now to upgrade these tracks. We're also negotiating, and that's only a part of the $1.2 billion that we have for the whole Chicago to St. Louis line. So we're working with Union Pacific and with the US DOT to come up with a final document where we would safeguard all the investments that we make here in Illinois. Some of the things we want to do is we're putting this money into a private rail line. We want to make sure that we have better on-time performance with our trains. The railroads are going to have to give us priority. The freight trains are going to have to stand aside and let our high-speed rail come by. We also want to make sure that we have the slots on the rail so that as the rail traffic starts to pick up and the economy recovers, that we don't have our passenger trains sitting in the station because the tracks are full of freight trains. So those are two of the priorities that we're working on right now to get finalized. But the bottom line is we will have a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, a document with the federal government and with our partners on the UP in order to make sure that taxpayers' money is indeed protected.
Good question. All right, Reuben Hedlund. Where are you, Reuben? Raise your hand. There you are. You made the room. Congratulations. All right. Does IDOT's application to FRA, I assume you know what that is, to study a true high-speed rail corridor between Chicago and St. Louis include O'Hare and McCormick Place? If so, how?
Well, we do have an application right now for 220-mile-an-hour rail between Chicago and Champaign. We've submitted that to the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration, and we're waiting for an answer from them. But we are committed, and Governor Quinn is committed to the high-speed rail, the 110-mile-an-hour rail between Chicago and St. Louis. We're also committed to the 220-mile-an-hour rail. We anticipate that at some point we'll be able to build that between Chicago and St. Louis as well. And it certainly makes sense that if we could, that we could include O'Hare into that mix, because then we could have, like we see in Europe, where people can get off a plane and then they can be on a train, they can be downtown, or they could be in a place like St. Louis in a relatively short period of time. So it's a incremental step where we know we can get the 110-mile-an-hour service up by about 2012. It's a little bit longer to do the 220, but as we're doing the 110, we're preparing for the 220 as well. So it's a dual strategy on high-speed rail. But clearly, we'll be able to have the opportunity in just a few years to ride from Chicago to St. Louis on 110, and if you like that, I'm sure you'll like the 220.
Let's face it, what better places to go fast to than Champaign, Illinois, and St. Louis, Missouri?
You may want to go see a Cardinal Cub game.
I mean, you know, I think I'd rather stop off at Litchfield. All right. Disregard the moderator. Disregard that. Most of you do anyways. All right. F.K. Plaus, is that the last name, sir? Ma'am? Corridor Capital, LLC. There you are. Yes, sir. The deficit will... Jesus. He's not a member of the City Club, but the records show. The deficit will require cutbacks in all state programs. Where will the cuts come in transportation?
Well, as I said, the good news is that the Department of Transportation has no employees funded on the general fund. We live off of the road fund, which is in good shape right now, and all the new projects that you see going on out here, like Wacker Drive, the Congress Bridge, so many others that are affiliated with IDOT, the Eisenhower, they're all being done with money that we have from the capital bill, which I mentioned earlier is borrowed money, but with a plan to pay for it. So we're actually one of the few agencies where I said in my remarks, we're struggling because we're trying to actually increase our headcounts.
Okay, two more questions. From the noteworthy Brian McPartin. Where are you, Brian? Raise your hand. There he is. Member of the City Club. Do you favor an increase in the gas tax for additional road funds? You could have 8 days to answer that question if you like.
Well, actually, one of the things I found out when I was a state legislator, people asked me questions and I would give them an answer. And now as the Secretary of Transportation, when they ask me questions like that, I say I defer to the governor's office. So I work for Governor Quinn, and he actually makes the policy decisions on gas taxes, whether we're for 'em or whether we're not, and I have a voice in what he thinks. I have his ear from time to time on important transportation issues, but he makes the final call, and then we work together to try to implement the process. So that's kind of how it works within an administration.
Give him a round of applause. The City Club always admires a good tap dance. Believe me. Trust me. Trust me. The last question I have before me is from Carmen Caldero. Target programs are minority and MBE? Non-minority firms eligible to participate in the target program. I assume you know what that means. Oh, that's from your question.
Right. Right. So it's my. Go ahead.
I'm talking about minority non-DBE companies. Are they eligible?
It's
Minority
right.
non-DBE.
I'll check to be sure, and I'll get back with you.
Now have a number of DBE firms that are graduating.
Right. And so it's clear that what the legislature was trying to do and what we are trying to do at IDOT is find ways to help DBEs grow and to participate in the process. So my view is that anything we can do to help that goal is what we should do. And the legislature has been very clear that they want us to go down that path. They're pushing us to go faster. And if we can find ways that can do that through legislation, I'm sure we can get them passed. So if you see any flaws in this bill, let us know. But as far as I know, it's a good proposal to try to move DBEs forward. And I'll check the specifics on who's eligible and who is not and get back with you. Okay?
How about a big round of applause? Holy, we got gifts. Gary, no matter what happens on next Tuesday, you still have a one-year membership in the City Club.
All right.
History of the City Club of Chicago, and a mug to help you collect the funds to get us to St. Louis really fast. Big round of applause.